we'll be able to run a folk club concert later in the year. All of that's happening in November for about 20 people, but then we would live stream it. And put it onto our website. We've also done this thing where we've applied for grants for projects, and we're drawing in local musicians to deliver those projects. So we are running a workshop for young singer-songwriters that is going to help them recover from bushfires. So the bushfire plus the COVID hits are really impacting very significantly on mental health in this region, and volunteer burnout as well is a real thing. So all of those who are regular volunteers working on things like the folk festival, who didn't lose houses, and a very significant number of our volunteers did lose their homes. But those of us who are lucky enough still to have a home, we're kind of directing all our volunteer efforts into trying to help this community to recover. So we're actually really coming up against a lot of volunteer fatigue, which is another reason to be very careful about whether or not we launch into a festival for next year. But we have applied for grants. We're getting those grants on behalf of musicians. So we got 10,000 from Create New South Wales, and we're working with Candler musicians, Mike Martin and others. Sats Kramer is involved as well. So to deliver this workshop for young people here. So that's a way of getting money back into our community through these government funds to give directly to artists that we know are not getting work. The other thing that Pete and I have been working on, and some of you will have seen this, I recognise what was Troubadour was saying about the radio. We think that there is a space for a folk television channel, and we've been trying to develop that proposal. And we do have a proposal that's sitting on the table at the moment that we're doing in between all our other recovery work, and are starting to steadily sort of circulate that, because it does need to be something that the folk community itself feels is a good idea. And at the moment, this is a proposal for a 1 hour online program with a Australian folk video channel, so a YouTube channel or a Vimeo channel, and it will have various different segments that can then be broken out of the television program, and people can dip in and out to pick up 9-minute segments or 3-minute segments or whatever, and it will cover a whole range of different segments, so emerging artists, established artists, from the vault, tips and tricks about harmony and singing and all the rest of it, what's going on in the regions, that kind of thing. And we think that there is likely to be some money available to do this in a pretty professional way. And so we are starting to circulate that. And I guess if people want to see it, we can send it out to you, if you let me know. So that's in between everything else that we're doing to try and rebuild Cobargo.
Sounds like
a big job.
Sounds like you guys are really onto it down there, which is fantastic. And that connection with the community is really important. And this is the thing that I'm most concerned about, is that this is creating a huge disconnect within our folk communities. Now, I noticed that we also have Ruth Hazelden in the room, and Ruth made an interesting comment some time ago about the fact that there is no national body that actually lobbies for folk in this country. I mean, that's just you know, it's a shame, because I guess, you know, in the days when we had the Folk Trust, that was you know, a long time ago, and of course different kind of organisation, but at least, you know, there was something, there was a body of people from all states that looked after folk. Anyway, look, Ruth, I'd be really interested to hear if you have any comments that you'd like to share with us.
I have a million comments, and they're all in disparate angles, so
well, go for it.
Bear with me. I'm here on Wurundjeri land in Melbourne. We're in lockdown number 2 after 2 weeks, and other than the dentist, the hairdresser once, the shops and the local oval, I haven't been anywhere since mid-March. And we're starting to get to the situation here where we know people that have contracted COVID, and people who've lost people from COVID. So the immediate situation here in terms of looking forward to events and that sort of thing. I guess we've got what I would call a sad but very realistic view about the way forward in terms of how quickly this thing can get up and running and how difficult that's going to make events coming into the future. I do think, you know, I think in the folk scene we've got a three-pronged kind of concerns. One is our festivals and our events and the people that run the venues and keep that side of it together. We've also got our community, and we need to nurture that kind of participatory level of our audiences who love singing and interacting. And then we've got sort of my end of things, which is sort of the more semi-professional, professional performer end of things. For those of you who don't know, I've been very heavily involved with the establishment of Musicians Australia, which is a new body of the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, which is the union that deals with gig economy workers, including journalists and actors' equity. So I've had been in an interesting situation recently where I've been in a few very high-level meetings with live entertainment office in Australia, and they're very much a commercially based body. Not much to do with the voluntary nature of some of our festivals, though it would probably hinge on probably the more commercially viable upper echelons of a festival in Australia. And just to give you an idea of some of the conversations that are going on around there, they're very concerned obviously about insurance, and I know that somebody has raised that there. We have no idea what's happening. You guys in the organisation land might have a bigger or some idea about what insurance would involve around somebody contracting COVID at your event. But certainly we do know that there's a lot of discussion going on with the government around the insurances around force majeure, whether or not an event is foreseeable and cancellations and who wears the responsibility for those cancellations. Now, I think it's going to be a long time, probably. It looks like Port Fairy and Woodford and New Zealand, and everyone's looking far more locally than they were before. But the bodies, the arts bodies that are actually interacting with the federal government at the moment are very much looking after themselves. I don't see a lot of any discussion, frankly, about our end of the industry. I call it an industry slightly reluctantly and slightly deliberately, because I think we're both, and I think we do need to take ourselves seriously as an industry as much as we take care of the community aspects of the folk movement in Australia. But in terms of, discussion that's going on around what happens when you hold an event, I heard the head of the Belvoir Street Theatre in Sydney talking about the fact that they could only operate forward at 1/3 capacity, and operating at 1/3 capacity would require them employing twice the amount of staff to be able to police audiences in and out of that one theatre in terms of cleaning and safety obligations. So we really are up against an awful lot if we want to get anything up and running. The one thing that the union I wanted to just flag with you guys, and I know it's a difficult conversation, is that for those of us that do derive income from our musical practice and do class ourselves as professional, and by no means am I saying here that we are any more important than the musician who plays in the session or the person who is not a professional musician. It's just that that's how we choose to derive our income, is that the union would really like people to keep in mind that if they are getting federal government funding for any events, that we have another look at there are actually live performance awards that have really, they do exist, and they are mainly applicable to concert and orchestral situations, not so much us, but that if any money has come through for performance from government, that we try and keep that standard of award up to help our artists that are operating at that level. I know a lot of people, every member of my band is currently unemployed and hasn't been able to get JobKeeper because the government is not looking at the gig economy, doesn't acknowledge it. And so we're sort of finding that everyone across the board in entertainment is looking at making sure that they're employed contractors and everybody's taken care of but the artists. So here's our scene, which is sort of mostly self-employed musicians and voluntary organisations. So in that sense, that's how I lament and why I lament that we don't have a national body that's there to actually try and scoop up some of that funding when and if it actually arrives. We found out that Paul Fletcher has actually left that stuff on the table unsigned for the last 2 weeks. I think partly it's around the fact that there are insurances and nobody quite knows what to do about running an event. You know, are they going to put money into an event when it is foreseeable that it may have to be cancelled? It's a minefield. Yeah. So that's my knowledge around what's happening. The live music office is fantastic. If anybody wants to get in touch with them and make some liaisons and relationships there, they are very much aware of who we are and the role that we play in the cultural sector. So I would recommend getting in touch with them. Other than that, it's just a really hard time, isn't it? I think we do need to bolster ourselves, and certainly, you know, I've got the folk forum running on. I'm not blowing my own trumpet at all here on Facebook, but that's partly why I set that up with the assistance of Zena at the beginning, just because we felt that there needed to be a point whereby we can all discuss this. And I think there's so much wrong with the way performance and arts are valued in Australia, that I do see that the benefits of this is my last statement. Sorry, I'm raving.
No, fine.
My last statement would be that this actually provides us with a fantastic opportunity to rethink where we want to go and to shape how we engage with our audiences and engage with our community. So I don't think all is lost in COVID. There have actually been some lovely moments of reconnecting and making more deliberate connections with people in our community. And this, for example, Pam, well done. And the work that you're doing with Peter Zena is just amazing. So let's keep in touch, basically. I think we need to stay together.
Yeah, look, I think that's I think that's the important thing is this connecting and staying together and supporting each other. And look, there's some fantastic things there that you covered, Ruth, and thank you for sharing all that with us. One of the things you did mention was that, you know, part of what our folk festivals do and is this you know, community music, and where people come together and make music, and a lot of what draws people to festivals is that, you know, that aspect. And I think it's also one of the things that folk festivals, or we call them folk festivals, have as a point of difference to a lot of other festivals that happen. That there is this sort of there is this more sort of close way of connecting, and it's not only people connecting with other people. It's the opportunity for the audience to connect more closely with the performers, and I think that's important. And the sessions. Now, I do notice that we have Kieran O'Grady in the room. I'm not sure if he's. I can't see a picture, so I don't know, Kieran, if you've just logged in or whether you're and you're not there. But if you are there, it would be great to hear.
I'm here, Pam.
Great.
I'm just in the garden.
Kieran, it'd be great to hear from you from a session musician's point of view, and how this sort of impacts on that side of things, if you're able to.
Yeah. I suppose I'm you know, everyone here wants to see the survival of folk festivals and people to continue to participate. As somebody that goes to the folk festivals, there's something I think unique about Australian folk festivals, and it's something that we really need to keep in mind. So to look at different ways to run them, or different funding models and the like, is probably something to consider. But it's important to try and hold on to this wonderful thing that they have. And so as somebody that, you know, goes and enjoys, participates, plays a couple of gigs, enjoys the sessions, for me, it's as much about the family participating as if, you know, have a weekend playing music. Affording an issue for many people post-COVID, when festivals are able to get insurance and things like that. And so I do, and not that I have any solutions for it, but you know, you can put a cap on the number of people that turn up to a session, but you know, the atmosphere of the session bar at the National Folk Festival is unique. So look, I don't have solutions, but really interested to hear all the things that have been said so far. And it's something that I know, you know, us as a family are really keen to get back to bring a 12-year-old back to a festival and be able to continue his enjoyment of music, as playing and performing, and I suppose a cultural identity that is slightly different, but you know, that he would have back in Ireland if we were still there. So they're really important things for us. So as a family participation and atmosphere, you know, that whole notion of camping that is part of festivals in Australia seems to me to be something that you can still probably do here, even if circumstances are challenged by COVID, maybe, because it's, you know, you can have outdoor sessions or functions and events than you can in other countries. So I think there's loads of opportunities. It's just trying to find probably a way to fund them, knowing that you probably won't have as many people attending for a while, and it will be difficult to get the funding from those. You can't just put ticket prices up, obviously. So that's probably the main concerns. Wish I had some solutions.
Okay, well, thanks, Kieran. It's great that you've shared that with us. On another front, we have Darry Adamson in the room, and Darry's involved, has been involved for a long time in the folk scene, particularly as a volunteer for the National Folk Festival, and now very active in the session scene in Canberra. But Darry's also involved in the health sector, and she has a few things she'd like to share.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Hi everyone, it's so nice to see your lovely faces. I'll be very brief. I just want to introduce something that might seem a bit out of left field, but it's to do with mental health and infection control. So the mental health part of it is that here in Canberra, I've been in lockdown by choice. I'm sort of retired anyway. In my house since the middle of March, like someone else. But in Canberra, we've managed to keep going, having small private kind of outdoor sessions. And we're also having a session that takes place in a dance venue. And the reason so in terms of mental health, we haven't actually stopped being able to play session music with each other, which is what me and most of my friends do. Some of them are performers as well. But anyway, we're having a reasonable time looking after our mental health by continuing to play music with our friends. And I'm sure a lot of people are doing that too. But the infection control aspect of it is that, I tell you what, nurses should be running the universe, because if nurses had been called in at the beginning of this pandemic, we wouldn't have had all the problems. That's just me on my soapbox. A lot of people, I think, don't realise that there are people called infection control nurses who do the nuts and bolts work. They're the absolute experts in how not to transmit infection. I'm not an infection control nurse, but I've had something like 45 years of nursing experience. So I'm quite used to dealing with people with infectious diseases. in the course of my work. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because if there are any nurses in your circle who can advise you on how to set up a session where it's impossible to transmit an infectious disease, then consider consulting them, because we've been able to set up this session in the dance hall because I've effectively told them all that you can cut transmission if you don't go too close to people and if you don't touch anything. And we arrive at this dance hall and we bring all our own gear, our own chairs, our own thermoses, our own food, instruments, everything. We don't exchange objects. We sit at least 1.5 to 2 meters apart, and it's such a joy. There are about 20 of us, and we're playing session music together, and I feel pretty safe there, even though I'm a person who's chosen to physically isolate. We also need to keep up to date with the latest information, and at the moment, we're looking at wind instruments. We're not quite sure about how aerosol spread is happening. And I'm, so as a wind player, I'm taking that quite seriously, and I'm learning the fiddle. That's the lengths I'll go to. But anyway, I just wanted to say that really briefly. It is really worth consulting any infection control people, you know, because epidemiologists are fantastic, but the people that actually know the nuts and bolts of how to break the chain of infection, and you can look up the chain of infection on the internet, the people that know how to do this are nurses. So I just thought I'd throw that in if you're trying to think about the practicalities. Thanks, Rosie. The practicalities of how to actually keep your mental health going by having small sessions with your friends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Darry. That's lovely. Is Stuart Leslie still in the room? Because Stuart's been involved with the Kangaroo Valley Folk Festival, and one of I guess the smaller niche festivals. Although I shouldn't say that; it might be huge these days. Stuart, are you still around?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I was just eating. I didn't want everyone to see me eating.
Oh, okay. Well, too late.
Yeah, I'm here, and Sally's here too beside me. Yeah. So I basically agree with what everyone said, especially Zena about volunteer fatigue, etc., and the suggestions about outdoor concerts. So, you know, as everyone probably knows, we were going to have a one-day outdoor concert. We've got a really nice space here surrounded by gum trees. We were going to have a big screen for about 500 people. And a few months ago, that was looking viable, but obviously not now. And when we started looking at the COVID safe requirements, you know, we were responsible for making sure people didn't queue up too closely at the stalls and when they're coming in and leaving. And, you know, in the end, we really didn't want to be responsible for bringing all those people together, even if we were allowed to. But yeah, so we're really having a year off. You know, this would have been our 15th festival. So we just wait till next year. Hopefully we can do it. We've invited all our performers back again next year, the ones who can. And we thought about doing something online, but really the main attraction of our festival is the participation and the you know, people getting together, and you don't really get that with the online thing. So that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, right. Thanks for sharing that, Stuart. A couple of other people I notice are in the room, Bob and Margaret Fagan, and of course they've been involved in the folk scene in New South Wales and Australia for a particularly long time. I'm just wondering whether Bob or Margaret, you have any comments you'd like to add? Just need to unmute.
Hello. Well, first of all, just hats off to all of you for all the fantastic work you're doing in these difficult times. It's just totally admirable what everybody is trying to facilitate and working on and applying for. It's just totally laudable. Yes, like all of you, we miss the live contact very much, but don't know when that will be coming back, because we, like Darry, are being very isolated. yeah, partly because our son-in-law was pretty sick earlier in the year, but that's just a personal thing. He's really well now, but we're just taking extra precautions. I don't know what to add, except that thank you for doing this weekend, Pam, and all the people associated with the Sydney Folk Festival. It's fantastic. And all of you for what you've given to us and our family and everybody in the wider folk community in Australia, all the festivals. It is a terrific scene, and we can only just hope that we can, in the coming years, crank up to something again, such as we have enjoyed. What about you, Bob?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Margaret said there. We've, like Ruth, we don't seem to have gone anywhere since March, but we have, and we've certainly gone into cyberspace, and I don't know what to make of it yet, except two things occur to me about what we're doing now. It means that when Zena does something like this, when Ruth does something like this, I can actually go. Whereas if you did some small group folk functions in Cobargo as a substitute, or as just something that keeps the momentum going at the local scale while all the other scales are going crazy, well, I can actually go to those locals. So my local, through these kinds of cyberspace things, is actually everywhere, because I've dropped in on things in Sheffield, I've done all those kinds of things. So I think we have to create our own normals. I mean, my background being what it was, it takes me a long time to work out what's normal. And so when I hear people jumping to the new normal about the post-COVID world and all the rest of it, I worry about that, because quite often people have got an agenda and they say, well, this is, we've sorted it at the global or national scale, so this is what it's going to be like. We can't do that. We've got to create our own local at those scales, as well as doing it in our own little communities, because we can't get isolated. And I really loved what Darry said. Thanks, Darry, because we've tried to get our mental health back on the sort of level it was before, and it's not too bad now, but with the local group in the Blue Mountains. But a lot of people like us, for all sorts of reasons, including our age, my age in particular, is to do with not really knowing what we can do in a group of 10 people. And of course, like all of you, we've tried to use Zoom to sing to each other, and we just fall about on the floor because it's totally unbelievable. And when you're used to singing 3 or 4 part harmonies with people who only live down the road, Zoom doesn't do it. So until the vaccine and the technology that allows you to sing harmonies together are invented, we've got to keep going with this opportunity that's given by the things like what you're doing now, Pam.
This is excellent.
This is an excellent way to do it. But it does mean that I can drop in all over the world on local gigs. And that means I can watch stuff, and it means I can go to that PayPal thing at the bottom and I can say, this is how we can help from this side of the world. So that's just another thing to throw in. So thank you for allowing this to happen.
That's great. Thank you, Bob. Look, there are a few other people that want to speak, and there are a few other people in the room. I'm just wondering what Bill Jackson might have to say. He's been sort of sitting patiently there, listening away. Bill, you up for making some comments? Unmute. Just unmute, Bill. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I always feel like I'm in an episode of the Brady Bunch when I'm on Zoom. Hi, Ruthie. Ruthie's just in the room next door. There's not a lot more that I can add. Look, we feel pretty isolated down here. I guess, look, all of our great gigs in Melbourne have gone. The Caravan Music Club, the Spotted Mallow, all of those places look like they've either gone or not going to survive. But I'm fairly optimistic that, you know, if things actually become normal again, there'll be things to replace them. But I think that, you know, the bigger issues that I thought that were important that Ruth brought up is I definitely think that, you know, in terms of that cultural folk collection and community, there does need to be some sort of national voice on it that makes representation in terms of funding and whatever. Because look, all the festivals are great. You know, everything that I've been to and played at and whatever, it's been wonderful, but it's also quite disparate, even though there's a lot of the same people that attend things. I think there definitely does need to be a national voice where the folk community can get their fair share of what they're due, because, and that doesn't seem to kind of happen at the moment. I think, you know, the performers that will always be there. I write songs because I have to write songs, and that's not going to stop. I mean, I've recorded an album with Karen Tolhurst in the last 3 months by file transfer, and I'm really happy with that, and that's kind of kept my mental health going. So the people who are committed to their music and committed to playing and performing, I don't think that will go away. And I think everybody will be ready to get happening when it gets happening again. But yeah, definitely, like in the bigger picture thing, it would be fantastic, I think, for the mental health of, you know, acoustic and folk musicians and whatever, that there was some body that was kind of looking out for them. And I think, I mean, in some ways, the work that Ruth's been doing with the union, that's a nice step in the nice direction too, because it brings people together. And I think anything that can bring people together is really, really important. So I don't know where we can kind of get this national voice or national coalition of festivals or whatever that can come together and find some common ground that will be beneficial to everybody. And that's kind of about the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, look, thanks, Bill. They're great thoughts there. And look, I think something that, you know, is coming through is this forming up some sort of, or having some sort of national body or organisation that can really go into to bat for folk. I'm not sure, but anyway, look, it's food for thought. I'm going to keep moving around because Jane Brownlee would like to share some thoughts with you. So I'm going to ask Jane to pop up into the room next. So wherever Jane might be.
Hi everyone. Thanks for all of the great comments and a really interesting, thought-provoking comment so far. I just want to add one little idea and see what you guys think about this. I've come home to Australia after 11 years abroad, where I was quite often the oldest person in the room playing music. And what I notice is that we're not really engaging a lot with our youth. And then another thing about coming home to Australia, where Australian music is a mandatory topic to be taught at school from kindergarten to year 12 in all state music curriculums. But when I look around at what my colleagues are doing, they're using the same sing-out book from the 1970s that I had at school as a primary school student, singing Botany Bay and Click Gather Shears. And it's just amazing to me that we don't have a voice in music education in Australia. We don't have programs teaching young people about what's going on in the folk music world, because I think all these things would link together, where we would have a national education collective and that would feed on into our industry and feed on into the festivals. So I think that's going to have to be a really important part moving forward in terms of a strategy for one, engaging youth, one, engaging with the community, and also building an industry, because now then you will be getting the artists coming through, you'll be getting an audience coming through. And that's just my kind of thought about it. I've been banging on about it with the FolkFed committee for some time. They're probably sick of it by now. In any case, if anyone else out there is kind of interested in that, I'm sure you all are. And would like to be involved. It's something I'm really keen to drive moving forward, and I'd really value your input and your suggestions and your advice. Pam Merrigan's already seen kind of the start of a really big program that I'm putting together that would go across all the secondary schools, which involves people like a transcription of Kate and Ruth and Ted Egan and just lots of artists that really inspire me and engage me in music, where it makes me think, yeah, I want to do that, and I want other young people to do that. So I'd really appreciate any feedback. I think it's a really important part of developing a big strategy. Thanks. That's it from me.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jane. So there's some really good thoughts there too. And I think, look, it's all these pieces in the puzzle. And we you know, what I see with the folk scene here, or the folk community, or whatever you call it, folk industry, or look, you know, whatever, there are lots of little pieces. And there are lots of people working, you know, on various pieces, but they're not quite coming together. And particularly when I go to the UK, and I've been going backwards and forwards, I've family there, so I go backwards and forwards. a lot and use it as an opportunity to attend conferences and things when I'm there, I see that there's a lot more happening. Now, I'm not saying we should be doing what they do, but you know, there are courses in universities, there are things happening in schools, and there are a lot of and they're getting a lot of funding to help with that. And somewhere along the line, we are not getting that connection. So, and I think that if we had some of that already, we would be dealing with this in slightly different ways. I'm not sure, because I can't preempt that, but I do think that there's lots of little pieces, and I think what we need to do is work out how we look at the jigsaw puzzle and actually get the big picture working. So I do have all the email contacts of the people who put their names down for this forum, and we can certainly keep the conversation going, and I'd be very happy to get another, outside the Sydney Folk Festival, but just get some more of these sort of talk things happening. But it's good to have a talk fest, but at the end of it, we also need to come out with, we need to come out of it with some sort of direction and some kind of, I hate to say the word, but a kind of, well, direction's probably better, but a kind of vision for what we see as the end product of what we're trying to do, so that we can all be on the same page. Therefore, if we're looking for funding, or if we're approaching people, we're all sort of singing from the same song sheet, which is a terrible thing to, everyone uses that all the time, but it's important that we're not giving mixed messages. So I think these sort of are some of the things that are coming that are coming out of this discussion. I was just wondering, we've got a few minutes left, and I'm just wondering if there's anybody else. I wondered, whether someone like I'm looking to see if anyone. I'm flicking through to see if anyone's raising their hands to speak, because I don't want to drag this on for any longer than we need, and we are getting close to the end. But does anyone else want to add any final comments? What we'll do too is we'll actually keep a copy of the chat, so that we can look and see what was there, so that if we couldn't read it all as we were going through, and if you would like, I'll probably email a copy of that out to you as well. But yes, is there any, Dina, did you want to say something?
Yeah, the elephant in the room that Ruth has mentioned, which is Folk Alliance. And what
Yes.
is the role of Folk Alliance, in these discussions, and is there any way in which that organisation can perhaps be prevailed upon or revived to act much more as an advocate for our sector, or is it a lost cause?
Well, it's probably not a discussion we're going to have here, is it, Zena? But I think it. You do mention it, and I think it is important. I noticed that when I was over in the UK the last time, they of course were looking at ways of connecting with Europe, because of course the Brexit thing was all the go, and people in the UK, and particularly artists in the UK, were saying, well, what are we going to do once we sort of Brexit exit the EU? And there was talk of them forming up some kind of organisation which would connect the UK and European countries to keep that sort of movement with performers, and between festivals and all of that, touring and all of that sort of going I guess in a sort of smoother way. So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to get together and actually form something that actually works.
I actually don't think that we can have this conversation about a new body without considering what the role of the FAA is.
No, I know you can't.
If it is going to be a kind of promotional organisation and do all of those linkages that it does with Celtic Connections and all the rest, that's fine. But perhaps the discussion needs to be had. Well, do you want to take on this advocacy role? Do you see yourself as this is the FAA, as being part of your remit? And if they say, well, yes, then I think we need to probably engage with them and say, well, these are the sorts of things that we think you need to be prepared to take on if that's the role that you see for yourself. And if they say, well, not really, and then there is space. There is a space then to create something.
No, I'm not saying that we should go ahead and do that. I was just saying that this is what. Look, I'm really happy to take it on, to take and to contact the FAA people, you know, and just see where they're up to with what they're planning, and get back to everyone on it if that's what people would like, or if somebody else wants to do it, I'm happy for someone else to as well. It's just I know a lot of you are busy, Zena. I know you're just about up to you. I don't know, you're over your ears in it, I think.
Yeah.
So look, I'm happy to I'm happy to do that. I'll contact the powers that be. I have their Sydney Folk Festival was actually intending to partner with FAA this year for a conference that they were intending to run. So and that was meant to engage with Australian audiences and Australian performers, and get things moving there. So look, there could be a desire. So I shall do that. Anyone else? It's hard to see people's hands waving, but I'm flicking through all the pictures, and I can't see anybody. Oh, Kathy, are you waving or just doing your hair? Kathy, were you wanting to say something? Oh, she's just doing your hair. That's okay. I can't hear you, so you're obviously muted. Yeah.
Again, Kathy's not muted, but there's some issue with her.
Okay, we can't hear you, Kathy. I'm sorry, but we're certainly going to, as I said, keep a record of the chat, and I know you've made a lot of comments there, so that's really great. Anyone else waving? No. So look, I would like to thank you all really very much for coming along and sharing your views, and I think there is we can take this further, and hopefully we will be in touch again, and we can put something else, put something together. I will contact the FAA, and I'll get back to everyone and let you know what their thoughts are. Kieran's saying, would it be possible to run a series of house concerts? Look, yeah, there's a heap of stuff. So you put the comments in there, and we'll have a look. Sorry, who's someone? I could hear someone in the background. No. So, and look, I want, and also to those of you who are supporting our online event, I can tell you we were about 3 weeks ago we were all packing it. No, Jane, come on. Not everybody on the committee, but look, we were just wondering how we were going to make it work. We knew we wanted to do it. We knew we had to do something because we just wanted to make a connection. And so thank you so much for supporting that, those of you who have. I think we're looking forward to a couple of great concerts this afternoon and this evening. And it was so much fun last night looking at the chat and just sort of seeing people connect and talking to each other in between the sets, and the interviews with the artists at the end was just, and going into their homes and seeing, that was just fantastic. So look, thank you all so much, and also thank you very much for attending today. And Jane.
Yeah, can I just if you actually missed the concert last night, you can actually click on that YouTube link today and watch it again, and you can see the comments come up on real time. So if you have the link, or you want to watch it again, or there was a moment you need to relive,
yeah. We'll probably share the link at some point. We just got to make sure the artists are okay with that. But yeah. But yes, so but thank you all, and enjoy whatever you're going to do, whether it's gardening or going out for a coffee or just, I don't know, lazing around the house or participating in our Sydney Folk Festival at home. Thanks very much. Yes. And your input's much appreciated. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Pam. Thanks, everyone.
Gary.
Oh, hi, Anne. Bye, Anne.
Hi, Gary.
I know that voice. Can we have a cacophony of goodbyes?
Bye.
So nice to see Bob and Margaret and everyone.
Bye.
See you later. See you at 4, hopefully. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, everyone.